Hi, this is Debbie. Welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming Urban Gardener. And I just wanted to turn on the camera and hang out with everybody today. This is, I believe, June 18th, maybe? It's the day before Father's Day anyway. And we're just here looking at the garden right now. I've been working quite a bit in it today, actually weeding and hoeing or hilling up the corn and beans and just, well, more weeding than anything and planting some more seeds and doing all kinds of things. We've got some containers going on over here, and I still have a lot to clean up here of Canterbury bells and forget-me-nots and some more Canterbury bells and forget-me-nots and 2 pots over here that we just planted. I did go ahead and start some more giant tomatillos because mine got killed off. And even though I have 2 more tomatillo plants, they're not giant, so I wanted to go ahead and get those started. And then I started the huge tomatoes that Suburban Homesteader Wyoming / Arizona sent, so I can fit those in somewhere even if I have to get another container. And I've got some poppies, some Hungarian blue poppies going on right there in 3 pots. And I've got some more purple bell peppers going on in another tray. So that one's going on. And then in this metal tin, I've been doing a lot of drilling because we had some metal tins that didn't have any drainage in them, and I've just been turning them over and had requested to get those drilled, and they have been, so they could get some drainage. And we've got some marjoram in that tin. And then in the 2 hanging baskets, I'm not going to use those as hanging baskets because they were extras. I've got butter dish squash in those containers, as well as the black container, and also in the big blue bucket that I did go ahead and drill some drainage holes in because that was the only bucket I had, and we transplanted out a tree that we had in that and got it into a bigger container because it's actually a really good sized tree. And I've been putting some lettuce seeds in places where there's some holes where lettuce should be. We've got 25 plants in there, but these are not the kind that head up or anything. These are loose leaf lettuces, and they will not get much bigger than this one right here, which is already ready to start pulling some leaves off of. And if you hear some strange noises going on in the background, that's my grandson. My daughter's upstairs doing some laundry and stuff, so he's hanging out with me outside in the garden and playing in the sand. Parsley's doing really well. We actually had some volunteer, I believe this is volunteer petunias that have came up in here, so I'll be transplanting those out soon, but I wanted them to get a little bit bigger so we can put them in some hanging pots. Got a couple of more pots here that we haven't planted anything in yet, so just trying to figure out what we're going to plant in these. These have the self-watering trays in them, so when you put water on them, the water collects in the self-watering tray and just keeps them moist the whole time. I've got some more lettuce planted in this one, and then we've got 2 more terracotta pots that are waiting to be planted. We're going to use those for some inside house plants. I had another one of those little green containers, and I've put some more cilantro in that because that cilantro was just doing so well, and I definitely need to dry a lot of cilantro because we are running low on that. And the radishes in the big container over here with the clematis. The clematis, by the way, is getting ready to bloom. We've got some blooms on it. They are doing fantastic. We've actually got some heads in there that are going on, so very happy with that because the first run of radishes did not do anything. They just basically stayed long roots instead of heading up and then went to seed. So, and it wasn't the heat because it was cooler then. These have been going through the heat. There's been temperatures into the 90s for all of this past week, and they have been doing just fine and getting some nice big heads on them. So it's not the heat. Don't know what it was, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the next batch of radishes. So great on that, because at least we get some radishes. Tomatoes are doing fantastic. The one tomato here was looking a little sad in the beginning because it just got kind of leggy in the house, but now it is starting to get some blooms on it. You can see the little blooms right here, as well as looking a lot more green. This is the leaf that was, or group of leaves that were left over from it looking sad, and I'll probably go ahead and trim that off. All of our new plants, we got some alyssum started in this new pot, and you can see that all of them have came up, so no troubles there. We've got some basil. I had a packet of 50 different varieties of basil, and we planted those, and I noticed the first one has started to come up, so we should be getting lots more. But I've noticed a lot of people talking about the potting soil this season, and I've mentioned it in the past couple of videos. Potting soil this season is terrible. Even the ones that I typically get before, sometimes I go back and forth between Schultz. Sometimes I get Miracle Grow. I don't like getting Miracle Grow, but I did have a bag of Miracle Grow. And then the other one that I get is Master Garden. I prefer the Master Garden. I could not find it anywhere this season. It's typically at Menards. So I had to settle back for the Schultz, and the Schultz usually is really good potting soil. This season it looks really chunky. If you notice, there's lots of like little wood pieces in there. And to me, it seems like that the potting soil is rushed. And I know that there were shortages on potting soil, garden soil, and stuff like that. Supply chain, blah, 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 which, who knows anymore. But I think that the soil has been rushed. There's a lot more people that are getting into gardening because of what's going on. And it seems like to me the potting soil is suffering for it because they're trying to rush it out and into the public so quickly. And it's just not doing so well. So anyway, I'm just not really happy with the potting soil situation this season. And it just seems like that it's a little bit hot. I've had failures on more things than I typically have. And this season, I've had a lot of failures, honestly. There's been a lot of seedlings that have just came up and then died off, or they don't come up at all. So I've had to keep replanting seeds, and thankfully, thank God, that I had loads and loads of seeds, because I have been saving all of my seeds. And it's not an issue with the seeds because I didn't have any trouble with them when I used the potting soil that I had left over from last season and the potting soil that was in all of these containers, and then remixed it. Didn't have any trouble with that. That is all of the ones that you see that are doing so fantastic. I had 3 bags remaining of potting soil that I had from last season that I refreshed all of the pots with, except for the ones that I had gotten newer pots, and I had to resort to the Schultz. And while I've had some success with the Schultz with some things like the alyssum there, other things have been struggling, and it's just because of the pieces and stuff like that. And I've tried to get the bigger pieces out. I've also noticed that there are large chunks of what looks like biochar in the potting soil, and it's more like a rock than it is biochar. So it's just telling me that it's not getting mixed up very well. They're not allowing it to sit the length of time that it needs to sit before they're shoving it into bags and selling it out to the public. So just be aware of that. If you are resorting to having to get potting soil, try to get the Master Garden potting soil if you can. I don't know if this season, if it's better, because I haven't been able to get my hands on it. But typically it is a very soft, fine soil. I'll show you an example is this pot right here. This is the Master Garden soil, and you can see there's lots of vermiculite, perlite, and it's just a very fine granulated soil rather than the Schultz, which has the chunks. So avoid chunks if possible when you're having to plant in containers for space, or you just enjoy planting in containers for the warmth, because this is what the warmth does with a pot. Now I have to water more often because of the fact that they are in containers. However, because of the warmth, I don't have to put the black plastic down, and it just keeps everything contained. Now I do have to build these trellises, which I had loads and loads of bamboo sticks that were in my garage left from the previous owners of the house. the 7 years ago when we purchased the house. So most of these are the sticks that they had left in the garage. Now they're pretty dried out. Sometimes they kind of shatter, but it's free. It was left here, and I'm using it for trellises, and sometimes I have to snap them in half because they're kind of fragile, some of them. And then I make shorter trellises with those. In a couple of cases I've had to do that. But what I do is I start off with tying those. There's usually either 3 or 4 poles depending on the size of the pot and or the thickness of the bamboo. So what I do is just form it together in a teepee like structure and then fasten it with a rubber band, and then I will come back later on and cut the rubber band off or just pull it off, and then I will be tying twine around those. I just want right now for this to be temporary, to hold the structure together and get the bamboo kind of working with bending where it needs to go, and it'll kind of stay in that shape once you take the rubber band off and then put another twine around it. So you see those structures there. I did all of that today. So this is kind of temporary, and then we will put the rope twine on, which will be a more natural twine. Everything is doing great in the strawberry kiddie pool. We've had strawberries. As you can see, there's one there that's not quite ready yet, and we've been enjoying those. We've got mountain strawberries and the seascape strawberries in here. And we did go ahead and along the outer edge, we did plant more cucumbers and watermelons in this bed. And some of those are just beginning to come up. And these are the short season watermelons. So they're usually maturity and producing within 55 to 60 days. These are doll babies. And then we also have some Minnesota midgets, cantaloupe, and some stuff in there. Some just different kinds of melons. And some very short season spring burpless cucumbers in there. And they are already starting to come up, and they were just planted 3 days ago versus me planting them in the ground, which is still kind of cool, even though we've had really warm temperatures, and things not coming up until a week and a half, sometimes even 2 weeks, cucumbers, watermelons, whatever. So that's why we're doing container gardening this year. I've got a later start. I went back and looked at my last season's videos and noticed that I had started planting in the garden in mid-May versus what it was this season at almost the first week of June. And we still had a cold snap in the first week of June, frost, all of that, and ended up losing a few plants, and just not good. It shortens our season quite a bit because if you think about it, we start having snow again by mid-September, sometimes even a little bit earlier than that. And that's basically putting our season at roughly about 80 days that are left. So very short growing season this season. And of course, by the time we get to August, then you're looking at your light not being as good. It is one of the hottest months is August. So a lot of the plants will start getting kind of taxed at that point. So a lot more difficult. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go into a part 2 of this video, and we will keep going through the garden. This is not really a garden tour, more of just a talk about things and to look at the trellises that I've created and a couple of other really innovative ideas that I've came across with some clearance products that I picked up for a couple of bucks, even $1. So anyway, we'll go into the part 2. And again, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notices on new videos as they come out. And we will see you in the part 2.